Welcome back. This is a Taekook fanfiction story. Disclaimer: it is a pure imaginations of mine. Please do not take it seriously. When he found the truth hidden in the bad boy's diary. The steam curled from under the bathroom door like wisps of secrets waiting to escape. Taehyung stood at the sink in their shared dorm room, meticulously organizing his study materials for the third time that week. Behind him, scattered across Jungkook's unmade bed, were empty energy drink cans, a leather jacket that probably cost more than Taehyung's entire wardrobe, and at least 4 different snapbacks. They'd been roommates for 3 months now, and Taehyung had started keeping a mental tally of their differences. Jungkook was all late nights and spontaneous adventures, the kind of guy who'd skateboard through campus at 2 a.m. just because he felt like it. He had that effortless bad boy charm with his tattoos peeking out from under rolled-up sleeves, and that cocky smirk that seemed permanently fixed on his face. Girls, and guys, were constantly messaging him, the notifications lighting up his phone at all hours. Taehyung, on the other hand, preferred the quiet companionship of his books and his carefully planned schedule. He was the type to brew chamomile tea at 9 p.m. and be asleep by 10:30. His idea of excitement was finding a first edition at the campus bookstore. They'd clashed from day one. "Do you have to play your music so loud?" Taehyung had asked during their first week, barely able to hear himself think over the bass. "Do you have to be so uptight?" Jungkook had shot back, but he'd turned it down. A little. Then there were the arguments about Jungkook's friends crashing at random hours, about the dishes, about the thermostat setting, about literally everything. Yet somehow they'd found a rhythm. An uncomfortable, tense rhythm, but a rhythm nonetheless. Tonight was typical. Jungkook had stumbled in around midnight, reeking of cologne and whatever adventure he'd been on, and headed straight for the shower without a word. Taehyung had looked up from his organic chemistry notes long enough to roll his eyes before returning to his flashcards. But then Taehyung's pencil rolled off the desk, and when he bent to retrieve it, his eyes caught on something on Jungkook's nightstand. A leather-bound journal, partially hidden under a gaming magazine. Taehyung straightened quickly, shaking his head. None of his business. He went back to his notes, determined to finish this chapter before bed. The shower shut off, and Taehyung heard Jungkook moving around in the bathroom. The familiar sounds of their nighttime routine. Except tonight, Jungkook seemed to take longer than usual. When he finally emerged, his hair was damp and messy, water droplets still clinging to his neck, and he was wearing nothing but gray sweatpants that hung low on his hips. Taehyung glanced up, then immediately looked away, feeling an unexpected flutter in his chest that he quickly dismissed as fatigue. "Studying again?" Jungkook asked, his voice softer than usual, lacking its typical teasing edge. "Midterms are in 2 weeks, Taehyung replied curtly, not looking up from his notes. "Right. Of course." There was something odd in Jungkook's tone, something Taehyung couldn't quite place, but he was too tired to analyze it. 3 weeks earlier, Jungkook had been annoyed when he'd stumbled back to the dorm at 1 a.m., exhausted from an impromptu street racing session with his friends. He'd expected Taehyung to be asleep. The guy was like clockwork, but instead, the bathroom light had been on, the door slightly ajar. He shouldn't have looked. He really shouldn't have. But he'd been walking past to grab some water, and the angle had been just right, and through the frosted glass of the shower door, he'd seen Taehyung's silhouette. The usually oversized sweaters and conservative clothes Taehyung wore hid the elegant lines of his body, the graceful slope of his shoulders, the surprising muscle definition in his arms and chest. Jungkook had frozen, his heart suddenly hammering in his chest for reasons that had nothing to do with the adrenaline from racing. Taehyung had tilted his head back under the spray, running his fingers through his wet hair, and something in that simple, unguarded moment had struck Jungkook like lightning. This wasn't the uptight, bookish roommate who nagged him about leaving dishes in the sink. This was someone beautiful, almost ethereal, completely unaware of his own appeal. Jungkook had forced himself to look away, retreating to his bed with his heart racing and his mind spinning. What the hell was that? He'd lain awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of the feeling blooming in his chest. The next morning he'd caught himself staring at Taehyung across the breakfast table, really looking at him. The way Taehyung's eyes crinkled when he was concentrating on his textbook. The delicate way he held his coffee mug with both hands. The deep, soothing quality of his voice when he answered a phone call from his mother, speaking in soft Korean that made Jungkook's chest ache. It had terrified him. So he'd done what he always did when emotions got complicated. He'd pulled back, spent more time out with his friends, cranked up the bad boy persona to 11. But at night, alone with his thoughts, he couldn't stop thinking about Taehyung. That's when he'd started writing in the journal his therapist had recommended years ago but he'd never actually used. At first, it had been just a way to process the confusion. But gradually, entry by entry, it had become something more. A confession. A love letter he'd never send. October 15th, I can't stop thinking about the way he looks when he's reading. Like the rest of the world disappears. I wonder what it would feel like to be the center of that attention, to have him look at me like that. October 22nd, he made tea tonight and asked if I wanted some. It's such a small thing but my heart nearly exploded. I said no because I'm an idiot. I really wanted that tea. I really wanted to sit with him. October 30th, we argued about the thermostat again. He likes it warm, I like it cool. But the truth is I just like arguing with him. I like the way his cheeks flush when he's frustrated, the way he pushes his glasses up when he's making a point. God, I'm so far gone. November 3rd, I saw him at the library today. He didn't see me. He was helping a freshman find a book, so patient and kind. He smiled, really smiled, and I realized I'd do anything to have him smile at me like that. Not the polite, tight-lipped thing he gives me. A real smile. November 8th, I think I'm in love with him. I don't know when it happened. Maybe that night I saw him in the shower, or maybe it's been building this whole time, hidden under all our arguments. How do I tell someone I love them when we can barely have a conversation without bickering? When he probably still thinks I'm just an immature kid who parties too much. November 12th, he fell asleep at his desk tonight. I put a blanket over him and wanted so badly to brush the hair from his face, but I didn't. I'm such a coward. Instead, I'm writing about it like that makes it any better. I'm 19 years old and writing in a diary about a boy who doesn't even like me. My friends would never let me live this down. November 15th, close call today. He almost walked in on me writing. I shoved this journal under my pillow so fast I nearly gave myself whiplash. I need to be more careful. But also, I can't stop. Writing about him is the only thing that makes this ache in my chest feel bearable. Present day. It was a Saturday afternoon, and Jungkook had gone out with his friends to the gym. Taehyung had the room to himself, a rare luxury he'd planned to use for deep cleaning and reorganizing his study space. He was picking up the inevitable mess around Jungkook's bed when he accidentally knocked over a stack of magazines on the nightstand. The leather journal tumbled out, falling open on the floor. Taehyung bent to pick it up, intending to just close it and put it back, but his eyes caught on his own name written in Jungkook's surprisingly neat handwriting. His name underlined with a date beside it. He shouldn't read it. He knew he shouldn't. But his name was right there, and before he could stop himself, his eyes were scanning the words on the page. November 15th, close call today. He almost walked in on me writing. Taehyung's hands began to shake. He sank onto Jungkook's bed, the journal clutched in his trembling fingers, and started from the beginning. With each entry his heart raced faster. The Jungkook in these pages wasn't the carefree bad boy who seemed not to have a serious thought in his head. This Jungkook was thoughtful, observant, poetic even. This Jungkook noticed everything about him. Things Taehyung hadn't even noticed about himself. He smiled, really smiled, and I realized I'd do anything to have him smile at me like that. Taehyung's vision blurred with tears. All those weeks of tension, of arguments, of carefully maintained distance. And Jungkook had been feeling this the entire time? Had been watching him, thinking about him, wanting him? He thought back to all their interactions with new eyes. The way Jungkook had started turning his music down without being asked. The cup of coffee that would appear on Taehyung's desk in the morning, always prepared exactly how he liked it, though they'd never discussed it. The night Taehyung had been sick, and Jungkook had skipped a party to make him soup, pretending it was no big deal. "Oh my God," Taehyung whispered to the empty room. "I'm so stupid." Because the truth was, and this realization hit him like a physical blow, he'd been falling for Jungkook too. He'd just been too stubborn and scared to admit it even to himself. He'd written off every flutter of attraction as annoyance, every racing heartbeat as frustration. The way his eyes would follow Jungkook across a room. The way he'd started buying the snacks he knew Jungkook liked, leaving them casually on his desk. The way he'd secretly loved their arguments because it meant Jungkook was paying attention to him. Taehyung was so absorbed in the journal, tears streaming down his face as he read entry after entry of Jungkook's hidden feelings, that he didn't hear the door open. "Taehyung?" Taehyung's head snapped up. Jungkook stood in the doorway, gym bag in hand, his face draining of color as he registered what Taehyung was holding. "Oh God," Jungkook breathed. I can explain. You love me?" Taehyung's voice cracked on the words. Jungkook looked like he wanted to bolt. His knuckles were white where he gripped his gym bag, and his eyes darted toward the door like he was calculating an escape route. I'm sorry, I know this is weird, I never meant for you to." "You think I'm beautiful?" Taehyung stood up, still clutching the journal. His hands were shaking but his voice was stronger now. "You wanted me to smile at you?" "Please don't." Jungkook's voice was barely a whisper. "Don't make fun of me. I know I'm just the stupid party guy and you're so much better than." "Shut up," Taehyung said, and then he was crossing the room, the journal falling forgotten to the floor. He reached up, cupping Jungkook's face in both hands and kissed him. For a heartbeat, Jungkook was frozen in shock. Then his gym bag hit the floor with a thud, and his hands came up to grip Taehyung's waist, pulling him closer as he kissed back desperately, like he was drowning and Taehyung was air. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jungkook's eyes were wide and disbelieving. Why? You're an idiot, Taehyung said, but his voice was soft, fond. I've been falling for you for months and I was too scared to admit it. Too proud. I convinced myself I was annoyed by you when really I was terrified of how much I liked you. You like me? Jungkook looked like he didn't dare believe it. Like is a very mild word for what I feel, Taehyung admitted, his cheeks flushing. I read your journal, Jungkook. Every word. And his voice caught. I feel the same way. I have for so long. Jungkook let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob, and pulled Taehyung into his arms, burying his face in Taehyung's neck. I thought I'd have to hide this forever, he murmured against Taehyung's skin. I thought you could never feel the same way. We're both idiots, Taehyung said, wrapping his arms around Jungkook's shoulders. We wasted so much time. Then let's not waste any more. Jungkook pulled back just enough to look at Taehyung, really look at him, the way he'd been afraid to for weeks. Can I take you on a date? A real one? Taehyung smiled. And it was the real smile Jungkook had been hoping for, bright and genuine and devastating. I'd like that. But maybe first you could kiss me again? Jungkook laughed, that cocky confidence finally returning, mixed with something softer, more vulnerable. I can do that, he said, and he did. They kissed slowly this time, learning each other, all the urgency replaced with tender discovery. Taehyung's fingers tangled in Jungkook's hair, and Jungkook's hands traced gentle patterns on Taehyung's back, touch reverent, like he couldn't quite believe this was real. When they finally settled on Jungkook's bed, Taehyung tucked against Jungkook's chest, their fingers interlaced, the room felt different. The same space where they'd argued about thermostats and music volume had transformed into something sacred. I still can't believe you kept a diary about me, Taehyung teased, pressing a kiss to Jungkook's jaw. Journal? Jungkook corrected, his ears turning red. It's called a journal. And maybe you should be flattered. Oh, I am, Taehyung assured him. Especially the part where you called me ethereal and breathtaking. Very poetic for a bad boy. Jungkook groaned, covering his face with his free hand. I'm never living this down, am I? Never, Taehyung agreed cheerfully. Then more softly, but for the record, you're breathtaking too. I thought so the first day under all that cocky attitude. You terrified me with how attractive you were. Really? Jungkook peeked through his fingers, vulnerable hope in his eyes. Really, Taehyung confirmed. Why do you think I was so uptight around you? I was trying so hard not to notice how gorgeous you are, how your smile made my heart race. How your laugh made me want to hear it again and again. Jungkook pulled his hand away from his face and kissed Taehyung softly, sweetly. We could have been doing this for months. We have now, Taehyung pointed out. That's what matters. Outside their window, the campus was alive with Saturday afternoon activity. Students heading to parties, to study groups, to football games. But in their small dorm room, Jungkook and Taehyung had found their own perfect moment. All their differences finally making sense, complementary rather than contradictory. Jungkook murmured sometime later, his voice drowsy. Oh, I'm going to keep writing about you. In the journal. Taehyung tilted his head up to look at him, smiling. Good. But maybe now you can also just tell me these things too. I love you, Jungkook said simply, the words he'd written dozens of times finally spoken aloud. I love your focus, your intelligence, the way you care about things. I love that you make me want to be better. I love you. Taehyung's breath caught, his eyes shining. I love you too. I love your energy, your passion, the way you make me want to take risks. I love that you make me feel alive. I love you. They kissed again, sealing the promise, and somewhere in the space between them, all their arguments and differences dissolved into understanding. The bad boy and the bookworm. The party kid and the introvert, the night owl and the early bird, somehow, impossibly perfectly matched. It turned out that opposites didn't just attract. Sometimes they completed each other. And as the afternoon sun slanted through their window, painting everything in gold, Jungkook reached for his journal one more time, Taehyung watching with fond amusement as he wrote. November 19th. He knows. He feels the same way. I'm the luckiest person alive. This is the beginning of everything. Taehyung read over his shoulder and smiled, pressing a kiss to Jungkook's temple. This is the beginning of everything, he agreed. And it was. The days following their confession felt like living in a dream. Jungkook would catch himself staring at Taehyung across the room, still unable to believe this was real, that he was allowed to look now, allowed to feel. And Taehyung, who'd spent months hiding behind textbooks and rigid schedules, found himself smiling more, laughing easier, his whole world painted in brighter colors. Their first official date had been perfect in its simplicity, a quiet cafe off campus where they'd talked for hours, knees touching under the table, fingers intertwined. Jungkook had walked Taehyung back to their dorm, even though they lived in the same room, which made them both laugh. And at the door he'd cupped Taehyung's face gently and kissed him goodnight like they were in some old romantic movie. But as the days turned into a week, then two, Taehyung found himself growing anxious about something he couldn't quite name. It wasn't that Jungkook was pushing for anything. He was patient, almost careful, always asking before he touched, before he kissed. But Taehyung could feel the natural progression of their relationship, could sense where things might lead, and it terrified him. Because Taehyung was a virgin, completely inexperienced beyond kissing. And while Jungkook never talked about his past relationships, Taehyung had heard enough stories, seen enough people in and out of Jungkook's life before they got together, to know that Jungkook was experienced. Late one night, while Jungkook was in the shower, Taehyung found himself on his laptop, searching. First-time advice. How to prepare. What to expect. The articles were clinical, sometimes contradictory, and did nothing to ease the knot of anxiety in his stomach. Some talked about pain, about preparation, about communication. Others made it sound easy, natural. Taehyung didn't know what to believe. Hey, you okay? Taehyung jumped, slamming his laptop shut. Jungkook stood there in sweatpants and a t-shirt, hair still damp, concern etched on his face. I'm fine, Taehyung said automatically, but his voice wavered. Jungkook crossed the room slowly, sitting on the edge of Taehyung's bed. Tae, you've been distant lately. If I did something. No. Taehyung interrupted quickly. No, you didn't do anything. It's just. He took a shaky breath, forcing himself to be brave. They'd promised honesty, hadn't they? I've been researching. About intimacy. Physical intimacy. Jungkook's eyes widened slightly, then softened with understanding. Oh. I've never. Taehyung's cheeks burned. I've never done anything like that before. And I know you probably have, and I don't want to disappoint you, but I'm also scared and I don't know what I'm doing, and everything I read online just made me more confused and… Taehyung. Jungkook's voice was gentle but firm. He took Taehyung's hands in his. Breathe, baby. Taehyung obeyed, drawing in a shaky breath. First of all, Jungkook continued, his thumbs rubbing soothing circles on Taehyung's palms, you could never disappoint me. Second, there's no timeline here. We move at your pace. Whatever you're comfortable with. But what if I'm never ready? Taehyung whispered, voicing his deepest fear. What if I'm too scared? Then we'll be scared together, Jungkook said simply. Tae, I'm not with you for physical intimacy. I'm with you because I love you. Because you make me want to be better. Because you see me, really see me, not just the persona I show everyone else. He squeezed Taehyung's hands. We can take this one step at a time. Baby steps. No pressure, no expectations. Taehyung felt tears prick his eyes. I want to, he admitted quietly. I want to be close to you like that. I'm scared it'll hurt. And I don't want to mess it up. It won't hurt if we do it right, Jungkook assured him. If we take our time, if we prepare properly, if we communicate. But Tae, even if there's some discomfort at first, I'll be right there with you. We'll go as slow as you need. And if you want to stop at any point, we stop. No questions asked. You promise? I promise. Jungkook leaned forward, pressing a soft kiss to Taehyung's forehead. How about we start smaller? Just exploring what feels good, what you like. No expectations beyond that. Would that be okay? Taehyung nodded, feeling some of the tension leave his shoulders. Okay. Baby steps. Baby steps, Jungkook echoed with a smile. The next few weeks became a journey of discovery. They started simple, longer kisses that left them both breathless. Jungkook's hands learning the map of Taehyung's body over his clothes, the sensitive spots that made Taehyung gasp. Each night was a new step, a new boundary gently tested and either crossed or respected. One evening, Taehyung had been the one to initiate, tugging off his sweater with shaking hands while Jungkook watched with dark, reverent eyes. You're so beautiful, Jungkook had whispered, and the way he said it, like prayer, like wonder, made Taehyung feel powerful and cherished all at once. They'd learned each other slowly. Taehyung discovered that Jungkook was ticklish along his ribs, that he loved having his hair played with, that he made these small sounds of pleasure when Taehyung kissed his neck. And Jungkook was patient and attentive, always checking in, always making sure Taehyung was comfortable. Is this okay? Became their constant refrain. Can I touch you here? Tell me if you want me to stop. How does this feel? Taehyung fell more in love with every gentle question, every moment of care. A month into their physical relationship, they'd progressed to lying together in Jungkook's bed, bodies pressed close, exploring each other with more confidence. Taehyung had been nervous the first time Jungkook touched him intimately, but Jungkook had talked him through it, voice low and soothing, telling him how perfect he was, how good he was doing, until Taehyung had come apart in his hands, overwhelmed and emotional and safe. "I've got you," Jungkook had murmured, holding Taehyung through the aftershocks. "I've always got you." But there was still that final step, the one Taehyung both wanted and feared. It happened on a quiet Friday night, 6 weeks after they'd gotten together. They had the room to themselves. Taehyung had checked the hallmate's schedule obsessively to make sure they wouldn't be interrupted. Jungkook had noticed his anxiety all day and finally pulled him close on his bed. "Tae, what's going on in that beautiful head of yours?" Taehyung was quiet for a long moment, then finally said, "I think I'm ready. For everything." Jungkook pulled back to look at him, searching his face. "Are you sure? There's no rush." "I'm sure," Taehyung said, and he meant it. Yes, he was nervous, but he trusted Jungkook completely. "I want this. I want you. I need you to be patient with me. Always," Jungkook promised. He cupped Taehyung's face, kissing him softly. "We'll go slow. And if at any point you want to stop, we stop. Okay? Okay." They started the way they always did, with slow kisses that gradually deepened, with gentle touches that built heat between them. Jungkook had prepared everything they'd need earlier, had done research of his own to make sure he knew how to make this as comfortable as possible for Taehyung. "I love you," Jungkook murmured against Taehyung's lips. "I love you so much." "I love you too," Taehyung whispered back. And then they were removing clothes, skin against skin, Jungkook's hands trembling slightly with the effort to go slow when all he wanted was to worship every inch of Taehyung. "You're shaking," Taehyung noticed, touching Jungkook's face. "Because you're perfect," Jungkook said honestly. "Because I can't believe I get to have this with you." The preparation was gentle, Jungkook talking to him through every step, praising him, checking in constantly. "You're doing so well, baby. That's it. Just relax for me. I've got you." But when it came time for the final step, despite all the preparation, despite Jungkook's gentleness, Taehyung gasped in pain, his body tensing involuntarily. "Stop, stop," Jungkook said immediately, freezing. "Breathe, Tae. Just breathe." Tears leaked from the corners of Taehyung's eyes. I'm sorry. "Hey, no, don't apologize." Jungkook kissed away his tears, his own heart breaking at the sight. "This is normal, okay? Your body just needs to adjust. We can stop right here if you want." "No," Taehyung grabbed his wrist. "No, I want this. Please. Just give me a minute." Jungkook kissed him deeply, pouring all his love into it, his hand finding Taehyung's and interlacing their fingers. "I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Take all the time you need." "Okay," Taehyung breathed. "Okay, you can keep going. Just slowly." "So slowly," Jungkook promised. "The slowest. You tell me if it's too much." He moved incrementally, watching Taehyung's face for every flicker of discomfort, murmuring constant reassurance. "You're so brave. So perfect. I love you. You're doing so well, baby. That's it. Just like that. Breathe with me." The pain gradually shifted to an odd fullness, and then as Jungkook found the right angle, to something else entirely. Taehyung's breath caught for a different reason. "There?" Jungkook asked, voice strained with the effort of holding still. Is that good? Yes, Taehyung gasped. Yes, that's, oh? I've got you, Jungkook murmured, starting to move in careful, measured movements. I've got you, Tae. You feel so perfect, so good. You're amazing. The discomfort faded into the background as pleasure built, and Taehyung found himself clinging to Jungkook, their bodies finding a rhythm together, sweat slicked and trembling. Jungkook never stopped talking, never stopped checking in, his voice a constant anchor of love and reassurance. How are you feeling? Is this okay? You're so beautiful like this. I love you. I love you so much. That's it, baby. You're perfect. So perfect. When they finally reached their peak, it was together, Taehyung crying out Jungkook's name, Jungkook burying his face in Taehyung's neck as they came apart and remade themselves in the same breath. In the aftermath, Taehyung found himself crying again, not from pain this time, but from the overwhelming emotion of it all. Jungkook immediately pulled out as gently as possible and gathered Taehyung into his arms. Sure, I've got you. You're okay. You did so well, baby. You were perfect. He peppered Taehyung's face with soft kisses, holding him close, letting him cry it out. Talk to me, Tae. What do you need? Just hold me, Taehyung managed between sobs. Just don't let go. Never, Jungkook promised fiercely. I'm never letting go. He held Taehyung for long minutes, stroking his hair, whispering sweet words, letting him feel everything he needed to feel. When the tears finally subsided, Jungkook carefully cleaned them both up, his touch gentle and caring, then pulled Taehyung back into his arms under the blankets. How are you really feeling? Jungkook asked quietly, needing to know. Taehyung was quiet for a moment, taking inventory of his body. His emotions. Sore, he admitted. A little overwhelmed. But also. He looked up at Jungkook with eyes full of wonder. I feel closer to you than I ever have. Like we shared something sacred. Jungkook's eyes grew suspiciously bright. We did, he said, voice rough with emotion. Thank you for trusting me with this. With you. Thank you for being patient with me, Taehyung countered. For making it beautiful even when I was scared. They lay together in the quiet, Jungkook's hand tracing lazy patterns on Taehyung's back. Both processing what they just shared. The crying was normal, right? Taehyung asked after a while, suddenly self-conscious. I read that it can be emotional but completely normal, Jungkook assured him. It was emotional for me too. Still is. He pressed a kiss to Taehyung's temple. Tae, that was my first time too. Taehyung pulled back to look at him in shock. What? But I thought. I've fooled around before, Jungkook admitted. But I've never, not like that. Never with someone I loved. You're my first too in all the ways that matter. Taehyung felt tears well up again and buried his face in Jungkook's chest. I love you. I love you too, Jungkook whispered into his hair. So much it scares me sometimes. They fell asleep like that, wrapped up in each other, two souls who'd found their home in each other's arms. The next morning, Taehyung woke up sore but content, Jungkook's arms still wrapped protectively around him. He shifted slightly and winced. Hey, careful, Jungkook murmured sleepily, pulling him closer. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck, Taehyung admitted with a small laugh. but a good truck. A truck I'd let hit me again. Jungkook snorted. That's the worst metaphor I've ever heard. Shut up, I just woke up, Taehyung protested, but he was smiling. Jungkook kissed his shoulder. Stay here. I'm going to run you a bath and get you some painkillers. You don't have to. I want to, Jungkook interrupted, already sliding out of bed. Let me take care of you. And he did. He ran a warm bath with Epsom salts he'd bought specifically for this purpose, because of course he'd researched aftercare, helped Taehyung into the tub and sat on the edge, washing Taehyung's hair with gentle fingers while they talked softly about nothing and everything. Later, after Taehyung was dressed in the softest clothes Jungkook owned, Taehyung had claimed his favorite hoodie. They curled up together on Jungkook's bed with tea and breakfast that Jungkook had somehow convinced his friend to bring from the dining hall. You know what's funny? Taehyung said, taking a sip of his tea. 6 months ago, I thought you were the most annoying person I'd ever met. And now? Jungkook prompted, though he was smiling. Now I think you're the most annoying person I've ever met, but you're also my favorite person in the entire world, Taehyung finished, leaning in to kiss him softly. I'll take it, Jungkook murmured against his lips. Years later, when they moved into their first apartment together after graduation, Jungkook found his old journal packed away in a box. He showed it to Taehyung, laughing at his younger self's dramatic musings. Look at this, he said, pointing to an entry. I was so convinced you'd never feel the same way. Taehyung read over his shoulder, smiling at the familiar handwriting. You know, I think I should start keeping a journal too. Oh yeah? What would you write? Taehyung pulled him close, kissing him softly. About how the annoying bad boy I was assigned to room with freshman year turned out to be the love of my life. About how baby steps led to forever. About how sometimes the person who drives you crazy is exactly the person you need. That's pretty cheesy, Jungkook teased, but his eyes were bright. You love it, Taehyung countered. I love you, Jungkook corrected. And in their new apartment, surrounded by boxes waiting to be unpacked and a whole future stretching before them, they kissed like they had all the time in the world, because they did. The end. Thank you for watching. Sorry if this fanfiction was quick, romantic with no hardships. Hope you did not get bored. I love you all.